Hey, it's Jason. Thanks for joining me here at the Hardy Life Outdoors. This is my new YouTube channel, but I'm not new to YouTube. I've been around for over 3 years, have over 150 videos on YouTube, with a lot of them being pretty popular. I'm in the process of migrating things from my old channel to the new channel, so you're going to see a lot of that content come over here soon, as well as a lot of new content about all the things that I do outdoors. Check out the content. If you like it, please hit like, share the channel with your friends, and subscribe so that you know when new content comes out. I appreciate you stopping and hope you like the content. Thanks. I'll see you soon. So since I'm stuck at home today, I thought what I would do is spend a little bit of time talking about why I chose to purchase the John Deere 1025R. I'm going to hit it from a number of topics. First, I'm going to talk about the current situation that I was in that made me want a compact tractor. I'm going to talk about the financial aspects of it. I'm going to talk about, let me look at my list here. I'm going to talk about the dealer considerations. I'm going to talk about features and functions that I was looking for. Then I'm going to talk about why I picked the 1025R versus the 1023E. And finally, I'm going to talk about John Deere versus the other tractor manufacturers that I looked at. So I'm going to hit each one of those, try to give you a little bit of insight in my buying process. And first off, let's talk about the situation that I was in. I own 25 acres just outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia. That property is about, I'd say 21 acres of that is wooded, 2 acres that I was mowing, and approximately 2 acres that was available for me to put into food plots. So at the time I was mowing that property with a Craftsman, I want to say 42-inch lawnmower. It got the job done. It struggled if I wasn't there all the time to mow, that it was just overwhelming for that little mower to try to cut the deep grass. So I had to be there every couple weeks or it just created messes for me. And the ground itself was pretty rough, so you would take a pretty good beating on that tractor. So I started looking for a tractor that would allow me to not only mow the lawn, but also I wanted to be able to add some attachments and start doing more food plotting for the hunting that I was doing. So that was the big thing for me, was I needed a combination mower as well as something with a PTO so I could start adding attachments and doing that food plot work. So I'm going to start off with the financial aspect, which might seem like kind of a weird place to start, but the reality is I had been looking for a tractor and thinking about a tractor for quite a bit of time before I got really serious about it. So I had kind of looked at web pages, watched from a distance, but hadn't really committed. It was an advertisement that I saw for John Deere's 5-year, no money down, no interest financing program that they had available. That's what really caught my eye and made me decide that I wanted to take a really close look at buying a tractor. That it seemed like it was a good financing opportunity and something that I should take advantage of or consider taking advantage of if I was going to buy a tractor. So that's what really got me moving in terms of doing the evaluations and getting serious about making the purchase. From there, you get into the financial aspects of negotiating the deal, and I get prices from multiple dealers, and where I live, there's a dealer about 2 miles away from me. They're more of a suburban dealer. They don't sell big tractors, they sell more lawnmowers and equipment like that, but they did offer the 1025R, so they were my first thought in terms of buying it locally and getting it from a dealer. So unfortunately my house was about 2.5 hours away from my cabin, so it wasn't going to be a convenient location for service. I also had a dealer down much closer to my cabin and another dealer that I passed on the way to the cabin. So I had 3 dealers available to me, and I reached out to each one of them and had all of them provide me with some quotes. So from a financial standpoint, I felt like I was in a really good situation, and I'll share the quotes with you of what I ended up paying for it. But I did do some due diligence around the cost and worked out what I thought was the best financial deal amongst the John Deere dealers. So the good news was these 3 dealers were actually, they weren't affiliated, they were 3 independent dealers, so I was able to get 3 people competing for my business. So on the topic of the dealers, next up was dealer location. I mentioned my property was located just south of Parkersburg, West Virginia. There were a couple dealers that were not too far away from me there, and for me that was an important aspect. I needed somebody that could first deliver this for me, and I didn't want to pay a significant amount to have it delivered. I needed somebody who could service it for me if I needed help, and I needed someplace that if I needed to go buy parts, order supplies, anything I needed for it was going to be convenient. So that was something that when I looked around the area, the John Deere dealerships were very close by. So that was an important factor for me in making my decision. The local dealer, I really wanted to keep my business local to my home. It's a small dealer. I pick up stuff for my chainsaw there. I have my lawnmower service there. I do a lot of things there, so I wanted to give them the business. But the reality was it was not going to be a good fit. They let me know, they couldn't deliver there for a reasonable cost, and it just didn't work. So as much as I wanted to use them, that was not the best choice for me. There were other dealers closer that I could look at for both pricing and for ongoing service. So dealer location was a big decision-making factor for me, and I've heard from others that it's an important thing for them as well. As I was looking at tractors, the next thing I had to consider was features. And if you're like me, and I'm assuming you are, because when you're buying and looking at a 1025R tractor, it's most likely the first tractor that you're going to purchase that has a PTO and a 3-point hitch. So it's something that you're probably not familiar with. It's not like you have a huge tractor and you're downsizing to this, or you're adding another smaller tractor. This is most likely your first true tractor purchase, and it's a compact tractor that has features and functions you're not used to having. So when I went into this, there were certain things I wanted. The first thing I mentioned, I had to have a mid-mower deck. I don't have it installed now, but I had to be able to mow the lawn. That was the key thing that I had to be able to do. The next thing that I was looking for was the ability to add 3-point attachments. I didn't really know what all I wanted at the time, but I knew I was going to need 3-point attachments. I knew I wanted a tiller. I was probably going to want a brush hog. Really wasn't sure what else I would need, but I needed that flexibility to add attachments to it and a readily available source of attachments that I could purchase and add to the tractor. The front end loader, that was a feature that I really wasn't interested in. And when I went to my local dealer closest to where I live and I talked to them, I said, what can I get the tractor without the loader? He said, we don't even order it without the loader. Everybody wants the loader. For me, it was something that I really didn't care whether I had or not. I couldn't see how I would use the loader or why I would need the loader, but because it was readily available, or it was standard equipment for the most part, he told me, you just need to get it. And now I'm really glad that I did. It's been a great feature on the tractor. I use it all the time for all kinds of stuff, moving stuff, pushing logs out of my trails. I load it up with firewood. I do a number of things with it that I didn't really imagine going into it that I would. So the loader was a key feature. But those were the primary things that I was looking for from a feature functionality. That I wanted a tractor, I wanted 3-point attachments, I needed to mow, and I was willing to accept the loader. The loader, again, not a high priority, but it was something that was there. Other than that, I didn't have significant features. I wanted more of a tractor tire than a lawn tire, because I was concerned that I might get it stuck in a food plot or in the mud. But I didn't have a long list of features that I was looking for out of the tractor when I initially went into the purchase. Once I got beyond the basic features, it then became a question of what model was I interested in. And I've actually got the original brochure here with me. At this point, again, I'm pretty sold on John Deere. I haven't done a comparison of other tractors, but I'm going down the John Deere path at this point. So the next question for me was, looking at the compact utility tractors, the one family, I needed to decide between the 1025R and the 1023E. Definitely some savings in the 1023E, but as I looked at them, I decided the 1025R was what I wanted. And I'm going to flip through here for just a couple things that I saw that were of interest to me. Actually, the majority of them come in the specs at the end, and I'm not going to go through all of the specs, but one of the things that stuck out for me was it was an extra 1.5 horsepower. It's not a huge difference in horsepower, but I was already getting a small tractor, I didn't want to give up any horsepower, especially on the PTO, where I needed to be able to run those attachments. When you look through all the features and functions, the two tractors are really very similar. Some of the things that really stuck out for me though was when you started getting into the comfort and convenience features. And for some, this may not seem like a big deal, and you have to decide, you know, the trade-off of how much am I willing to spend on these things. But one of the things was this came with the rubber floor mat, just designed to take a little bit of the vibration out of the floor. Deluxe lighting package, it came with that. That was appealing to me. The reality is I don't run the lights that often. It's not something that if I were buying today, you know, it's not a huge factor for me, but it was at the time. The seat on the tractor was actually a bigger deal to me, and it might have been something I could have upgraded on the 1023E, but it's got a taller seat which is more comfortable, and it has the armrest. And I'll revisit that driver compartment stuff when I start talking about comparing to other tractors, but that was something that was important to me. 12-volt outlet, that's again, it's a convenience. I have my phone with me. It's nice to have that charger there when I need it. So when I looked at the 1023E versus the 1025R, I just like the features and functions of the 1025R. Not a huge difference. My brother-in-law, or not my brother-in-law, my stepbrother at the time was negotiating the same tractor, and he was going the direction of the 1023E. What he was doing was mowing primarily a yard, just a larger yard, and from a price point, that's really all he was looking for. So he was going to mow a couple times a week. I saw myself being on the tractor for much longer periods of time, doing tilling, brush hogging, things along those lines. It wasn't just going to be a mowing tractor, so I wanted the comfort and convenience that went with the 1025R. So that's kind of what got me to the point of one versus the other. Okay, the last item for me, I pretty much was settled on the 1025R, but I didn't feel like I had done my due diligence in terms of looking at other manufacturers. So I decided before I pulled the trigger on this, I needed to do a little bit of looking around. Where my cabin is, they sell Mahindra about 1.5 miles or 2 miles from where my cabin is. So I stopped in there. Something that people had shared with me as I was doing my search was, you know, does the local dealer do service? When I walked in, you know, this was a fancy, you know, what looked like, you know, an oversized barn. That when I say oversized barn, 40 by 40 barn, something that you could put an office in, that if the business shut down, you know, the office was there, and there's no money invested. It popped up. They had some tractors on the gravel driveway. When I went in and talked to them, in all honesty, they weren't, you know, overly eager from a customer service standpoint. I don't think he even walked me out to show me a tractor and talk to me about a tractor. When I looked at the specs, what I started noticing was everything you compared, the Mahindra had a lot of the features, but just not to the same extent. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was the driver's compartment. You know, the seat on the Mahindra, a smaller seat, no armrest. The lighting package was not as nice. So, you know, when you're saving money by going with a dealer like Mahindra, the way you're saving money is they've done things different. And I don't want to say it's always a quality issue, but they've had to take something out of the tractor to get that price point where it is. So when I looked it over, it was just missing some of the creature comforts that I wanted, and the fact that they didn't do local service. I wasn't sure about getting parts from them. It was just enough to scare me away from that. The price point was a little bit less, but the reality is it wasn't enough to really motivate me to go with a Mahindra. My buddy who lives down there, he's got a Massey Ferguson tractor, and it's not a compact, it's a good sized tractor. So I thought, you know, it'd be worth taking a look at that. When I looked around, there was a dealer in the area, but it just didn't seem as convenient to me. I don't know, it wasn't something that I looked at and I thought, you know, there's Massey Ferguson dealerships everywhere. John Deere is everywhere, you know, they're local here in town. I pass one on my way to my cabin. There's one 20 minutes up the road from my cabin. There's one 40 minutes south of me. They were everywhere. That convenience was a huge issue for me. So I crossed Mahindra off the list. The only other one I looked at was Kubota. Well, yeah, Kubota was the only other one I really took a look at. And the reason I looked at Kubota, it was another dealership that I drove past on my way to the cabin. It was one that I hear people talk about positively a lot. So I did some online research, and in all honesty, by the time I'd been through Deere, Mahindra, Massey Ferguson, and I started into Kubota, I'll confess I probably didn't give Kubota as good of a look as I should have, but what I looked at, I didn't see significant differences in the tractors. I really didn't walk away from Kubota thinking that there was going to be any kind of quality problem. But again, it was a dealership that when I looked at it, it didn't have the size and the service and everything about it that I was seeing in the John Deere dealerships. So that was a big factor for me. Being a first-time tractor owner, I wasn't sure what I could do on my own versus what I had to pay others to do. So I ultimately went with John Deere because that's where I saw the comfort. It's a well-known consumer brand. It's a well-known agriculture brand. They had the dealerships. I felt like the quality was here, the features and functions were in this tractor. It was really meeting all my needs. So when you look back at, what was my situation, it fit my situation very well. You need to define what your situation is and what you need today, what you'll need maybe 5 years down the road. Think it through. You need to think about the financial side of it. What's going to meet your needs. Are you a cash buyer? Do you need to finance it? How are you going to do that? Understand what the dealer locations look like. So what's going to give you good service. Think about the individual specifications of the tractor that you're interested in. So I went through that whole exercise. I settled on this. I bought it in 2016. I've been very happy with it. I mentioned that we also have a 2032R. My brother bought that based on my good experience with the 1025R, based on the fact that there was a dealership right up the road from his cabin, and a lot of the same factors that I went through. I recently purchased a 4052R. The reason I bought the 4052R was good success with the 1025R, good success with the 2032R. The biggest issue we had was now not only did I have my 25 acres in West Virginia, but he and I owned 150 acres in Southeast Ohio, and we needed a bigger tractor. His tractor, the 2032, it does pretty much everything we ask of it. But when the two of us were working, we had his tractor and we had the 1025R. I really felt like I was overworking the 1023R sometimes when I was brush hogging. Felt like I needed a bigger tractor, and that's why I went with the 4052R. So those were the reasons behind why I bought John Deere. No regrets here. I see positives and negatives. People have different experiences. Dealership makes a big difference, but that's why I bought. I'm happy with it. I would recommend it to anyone else that's trying to decide what kind of tractor you should buy. So thanks. Hit the like button, share it with your friends, subscribe if you want to be notified when we put up new videos, and keep in mind, we like to say outdoors is always in season. Thank you. Have a great day.